We go live now.
Ahora. Okay.
Welcome to the Our World Heritage 2021 debate. 2021 debate is a year of events focused on protection, conservation, and management of World Heritage. We want to uncover untold stories to broaden our views on heritage practices and future perspectives. Knowledge gathered this year will be published in 2022 on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Convention. The Our World Heritage Initiative is created by individuals working on 100% voluntary capacity. We would like to point out that Our World Heritage provides an open dialogue platform that is based on voluntary work of session organizers and speakers. Our World Heritage welcomes diverse viewpoints in the spirit of collegial debate where mutual respect is afforded to all. Please note that the expressed views do not necessarily reflect the official position of Our World Heritage. We thank today's speakers for telling their stories, and we thank you, the listeners, for your kind interest and questions. If you want to remain up to date on our activities, you can follow our social media. We maintain channels in multiple languages to break through the language barriers and connect to local communities. You will find all links on our website, ourworldheritage.org. Thank you for being with us today, and we wish you a very fruitful event.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be the moderator of the session today, from the regional to the global approach, case studies, conclusions, the first one. We have a second one tomorrow. In this session, we'll be listening to the conclusions and recommendations of the regions of Europe, North America, and the Arab region presentation. The introduction will be that we'll be talk about the UNESCO World Heritage Convention is an important international treaty that has for almost 50 years played a major role in expanding heritage legislation worldwide and identifying and promoting the protection of a growing list of the world's most unique sites, both cultural and natural. Sadly, today, however, this instrument risks to collapse under its own success. Our World Heritage seeks to counter this destructive trend and renew the original spirit and mission of the World Heritage Convention by engaging citizens, civil society groups, and professional and academic organizations, with the call that together we can shape the future of World Heritage, and acknowledging that to be sustainable development process should fully reflect the contribution of heritage conservation, the Our World Heritage Sustainability Team invited stakeholders to submit case studies illustrating the challenges and solutions for integrating heritage and sustainable development to explore the key concept of sustainability in World Heritage, people, planet, prosperity, and peace. As a result of the call for case studies, 124 case studies were submitted from 50 countries. Of the 6 world regions, Africa, Asia Pacific, Arab states, Europe, Latin America, and North America. In the first round, 52 sites from both the already declared as World Heritage Sites by UNESCO and that on the national tentative list are participating. The selected case studies further participated in a self-assessment process based on 4 criteria: environmental sustainability, inclusive social development, inclusive economic development, and governance. As our World Heritage Sustainability Team, we are pleased that you are participating with us in this session from the regional to the global approach, conclusion of the case studies number 1. In this session, conclusions of the region of Europe, North America, and Arab regions will be presented. The presentation will be made by the coordinator and a guest expert from each region who has also participated in the case studies regional workshop held in June. The main challenges as well as good practices and regional learning will be discussed with the intention of recognizing patterns and deepening the diagnosis of the sustainable management of our world heritage. We will also be joined by special guests by experts from ICOMOS and SSCW who will be enrich the reflection with their experiences as advisory body. The program will be, we will have this introduction, then we'll be talking about the synthesis outcome of Europe. The region coordinator is Pamela Duran-Diaz. She will introduce the case studies of Europe, introduce the case studies outcome, and they will be joined by the expert of Europe region, Mr. Miguel Vidal. Then we will talk about the reflection on a North American case study. The region coordinator is Ms. Susan Ross. She will introduce the case study of North America, talk about the reflection on the case study, and we'll have Mrs. Alison Hogg, the guest expert, to present Pimachiuen Aki World Heritage Site. Then the census outcome of Arab state. I will be your coordinator. I'm the coordinator for this session for the region of Arab state. I will introduce the case studies, then the outcomes, and then I'll be joined by the guest expert, Mr. Murad Bouteflika and Mr. Nizar Darbe, to give us the reflection about it. Then we will have Mrs. Sofia Avgerino Colonias, the ICOMOS expert, to give us her commentary, and then will be followed by Dr. Naber Ghazal Aswad from Syrian Society for Conservation of Wildlife to give us also his commentary on the session, on the recommendations and conclusions. We'll have 30 minutes for questions and answers, and then we will conclude this session. We will start with synthesis outcome of Europe. The region coordinator is Pamela Duran-Diaz. She's a doctor in architecture. She is chair of land management of the Technical University of Munich. Pamela is a Mexican architect with a PhD in urbanism from Spain and a postdoc on sustainable management of cultural landscape in China and Mali. She is a scientific researcher at the Technical University of Munich in Germany, where she coordinates the doctoral and master's program in land management and geospatial science. She is the project manager of ADLAND, a collaborative research project to strengthen land governance in Africa. She is a founder member of the Research Gina Kanda International Forum for the Development of Cultural Landscape and a member of UNESCO Chair FLACAM. She has been a keynote speaker, lecturer, and presenter in several international workshops, seminars, and conferences in Argentina, China, Ethiopia, France, Ivory Coast, Namibia, Serbia, Sweden, Tanzania, Uganda, USA, and Uruguay, among others. Her research focuses on sustainable policies and strategies in which the local culture acts as a catalyst for development, and she is for sure a member of our World Heritage Sustainability team. Pamela, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Luna. Good day, everybody. Thanks to our attendees for joining us on this journey as well, and thanks to our international experts for their presence. I would like to take the chance to introduce our regional guest expert, Miquel Vidal from the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. He is my mentor. Miquel is a retired full professor at the Department of Urbanism and Land Management at the School of Architecture of Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. He co-founded in 1986 the master's program in landscape architecture at Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya, where he currently is a consultant professor. He is also a visiting professor at the Architecture School of Tsinghua University in Beijing. Miquel has written a number of books related to identity, memory, and heritage. He has facilitated courses, seminars, workshops, and conferences in the United States, Italy, France, England, Germany, Jordan, Mali, Mexico, and China. Mikel, it has been a pleasure working with you and traveling with you all of these years, and it is an honor to share the stage with you today. Well, we are halfway through our Sustainability Debate Month, and as mentioned during our inaugural session on the 1st of July, we have gone through a case study analysis to identify the challenges, strengths, and trends of our World Heritage in order to trace recommendations for the UNESCO Convention with scientific evidences. We are precisely at the stage on which we bring together the different regions to put on the table and review our provisional conclusions based on what was raised and discussed during our regional workshops back in June. As Luna mentioned, I coordinated the Europe Case Studies Regional Workshop, where we had more than 20 people comprised by different types of stakeholders, from site managers to private institutions, from researchers to NGOs, from local to regional experts, discussing about the main concerns regarding 11 different sites in Europe. The 11 different sites are the following: the Sassi and the Park of the Rupestриan Churches in Matera in Italy. This is a listed cultural site submitted by the independent researcher Pietro Laureano. Bursa and Kumalikizig, Birth of the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, is a listed cultural site submitted by site manager Neslihan Dostoglu. Town of Bamberg in Germany, a listed cultural site submitted by site manager Patricia Albert. Rjukan Notodden Industrial Heritage Site in Norway, listed cultural site that has the peculiarity of being also an industrial site, submitted by site manager and OWH sustainability team member Juliana Strogan. Genoa, Le Strade Nuove and the system of the Palazzi dei Rolli in Italy, listed as cultural site. This was submitted by a private institution represented by Alessio Re. We also had Priorat, Monsans, Urana, the Aragon and Mediterranean mosaic. It's an agricultural/cultural landscape in Spain, a cultural site in the tentative list, submitted by an NGO represented by Joan Baquet and his team. We also had Hala Sultan Teke and the Larnaca Satellite Complex in Cyprus. It's a mixed site in the tentative list, submitted by an NGO represented by Stepnen Huskara and Ege Uluca. The Renaissance monumental ensembles of Úbeda and Baeza in Spain, a listed cultural site submitted by an academic institution represented by Josefina Lopez Galdeano. Mahmud Bey Mosque, Kastamonu in Turkey, is a cultural site in the tentative list, submitted by an NGO represented by Gülsen Kierbas. The High Coast Kvarken Archipelago, a transnational case study that goes across the border between Sweden and Finland. It's a listed natural site represented by site manager Malin Henriksson. And last but not least, the Frontiers of the Roman Empire, Cumbria, United Kingdom, is a listed cultural site submitted by an NGO represented by Graham Bell. A very representative sample of, as you see, cultural, natural, and mixed sites with a typological and geographical variety examined through the glasses of different types of stakeholders. The data analysis and discussions during the workshop revealed that environmental issues are usually well addressed in most of the cases, with, of course, some room for improvement, especially in adopting climate change measures and the management of tourism. I could understand by looking at Cyprus, which is the first line that you see there, that they try to make a social complaint about the lack of a site management plan that manifests across the different thematic axes. It is nevertheless important to highlight the urban strategy for sustainable and integrated development of Úbeda and Baeza and the Action Plan 2050 based on conservation, development, and connection in Genoa. Now, in terms of social development, again, the inexistence of an instrument in Cyprus evidences the gaps in raising awareness and educating the local community. When we look at the good practices of Tarragona and Bamberg, there are innovative approaches like agrotourism and gaming technologies that develop social capital. In Rjukan, for example, the bottom-up initiatives have led not only to an enhanced stakeholder participation, but to a local community revolution. In terms of promoting human rights, despite the variety, this is human rights right here, despite the variety of colors that we get to see here, the answers of our local experts gave us the impression that although human rights are granted by constitutional law, they are not specifically addressed in the site management plan, except for the cases of Bamberg, where they had a campaign called the Bellwether für Respekt, Matera, where all the urban recovery processes sought to specifically comply with human rights, and Sweden, Finland, with capacity building programs. Now, regarding the inclusion of indigenous people, which is the column that you get to see here, I have to confess that I didn't know what to expect, because indigenous communities are easily identified in colonized countries. And I am here speaking as a Latin American who has worked several years in Africa. So I could not foresee how this was going to be handled in Europe. Perhaps I expected a big information gap. No, there are social complaints and there are good practices, serious social complaints about lack of consultation and disregard the decision-making processes of native communities like the Turkish Cypriot community and the local community in the UK. I was very happy to see good practices right there in terms of gender equality. In most cases, women are already empowered and in decision-making positions. Regarding the survival of intangible assets right there, you can see exceptional practices, such as including intangible assets in policies, like in Tarragona, the preservation of craft techniques, not only beer, but also gardening in Bamberg, traditional construction techniques of Matera, protection of active religious buildings in Kastamonu, the record and inventory of several intangible assets of Turkish culture in Bursa, recollection of oral traditions in the UK, and many more. In economic development, we can see that in general, it is inclusive. Even in the case of Norway, they have specific measures to promote economic investment and return. Moreover, Bamberg, Tarragona, and Kastamonu promote the economic development from the cultural perspective by boosting agriculture and the use of consumption of local products. They presented socioeconomic models based on the value of the landscape. In terms of peace and security, well, the information gap is consistent here, considering that there is no ongoing or foreseen conflict in most places in Europe. But I have to say that I appreciated that Tarragona stated it as, in my understanding, a concern. And it is truly a concern when we consider that Cyprus has been in a conflict area since the 1950s, and there is no real plan to protect heritage. Regarding governance, Cyprus heritage and social cohesion is in great danger because tourism activities, archaeological excavations, and even the construction of an airport are taking place without proper consultation nor compensation to landowners. During the workshop, it was very interesting to see how our different case studies share their strategies to include the rule of law in national laws and implement them at the national, regional, and local levels. Tarragona, Bamberg, Matera, and Sweden have success stories in changing the relationship between traditional and innovative approaches in terms of digitalization, mobility policies, rules developments. There is a trend to adapt and keep heritage sites functional, but helping them to evolve with time and stay alive. So those were the trends that we noticed during the workshop. But what did we learn when we met face-to-face and discussed in the regional context? In terms of environmental sustainability, tourism, massive tourism, it's an overarching issue across Europe. Because for several years, it has been seen as the key to start the economic engine, disregarding local culture, activities, and the environment. Also, climate change strategies and policies are not sufficiently addressed in the site management plans. However, there is an awareness on the role of the environment, the traditional construction techniques, and the know-how for sustainable and indigenous development. For inclusive social development, although this is not a general rule, I thought it was important to mention that there is, in some cases, a lack of consultation to local communities in World Heritage Site management decision. Yes, there is a need to reinforce the interaction with intangible values and local traditions and know-hows. In any case, there is this slow but steady increase of social awareness about the role of our world heritage. There is also an increased number of volunteer work and social commitment, and female empowerment doesn't seem to be a pending issue in Europe anymore. In terms of inclusive economic development, there is an unsustainable relationship with tourism. I cannot emphasize this enough. Tourism seems to be a mono-economic culture for development. We need to reinforce knowledge and skills transfer in order to overcome this mono-economic culture based on tourism. There is also an unbalanced stakeholders relationship. So maybe there is already a need or a trend. We need to map the different stakeholders in terms of power, in terms of interest. In any case, we are understanding the sites as drivers for local development, respecting the locals' inhabitants' lifestyle. So this is a strength that we have in inclusive economic development. Now, in terms of peace and governance, we need to address conflict in site management. This was a consistent information gap across the different case studies that we had. We also need to do some capacity building on the staff and also on the community to enhance this ability to think beyond silos. There is also no wide use of the Sustainable Development Goals indicators in World Heritage Management. We could see that there was a trend on having good communication strategies between the site management and other stakeholders, and this has reinforced the collaboration with local institutions and local communities. Wrapping up, in Europe, it is indispensable to equip our heritage sites with a site management plan. Tourism is not a solution. In fact, it is becoming more problem than a solution. And to overcome this issue, we need to think of innovative solutions that would go beyond the commodification of heritage. Climate change, environmental risks, SDGs, and conflict should be addressed in the site management plan. There is a need to map stakeholders and engage them in the decision-making processes. And this could only be achieved if we build capacities among the site management staff and the local communities. This way we could put cultural resources at the service of inclusive social and economic development to reduce poverty and strengthen resilience. Grazie, chiuderemo. Gracias. Anche, moltas gracias. Efkaristo. Thank you. Mikel, would you like to add something based on your experience and what we saw during the workshops?
Thank you. I absolutely agree with your words and your conclusions. But I think probably it's necessary to introduce some new consideration. The first is in my opinion, the governance is very important, for different ways. But in the revision of the conclusions has two ideas. The first is the necessity of the education, formation of the people. Local people. It's very important to train local people to manage our resources, our wealthy. This is one aspect. Another aspect is necessary that in university and the high level study, the governments introduce new subjects about relation with different countries, about the different economies, what means the difference in the global world. This is important because a new challengers, you need a new tools. In the past, the relation with North country or South country, sorry for this expression, but you understand clearly, is one type of relation. This changes absolutely in the future. I need to prepare the North people and the South people at the same time. No? It's very important in my opinion, to promote the local people. This is a key for a new good relation. Politics probably talks about politics is a little complicated or a little dangerous if you prefer, no? But it's necessary that the politics party in the agenda introduce the idea of the new relation with different countries. Europe is suffered a big problems with ethnic movements, but the governments it's not good idea to close the nations and create a frontiers, a barriers. It's better this money is used for promote the local people, no? But I think it's necessary to change the mentality. It's necessary to understand a different relation with the different countries in the world. Globality, if the globality is only for the rich, for the movement of the money, is not real globality. It's something like it's a bad thing, the globally only for the money. No, this is my question. Is need more engagement of the public's powers, money, courses, promotions, education of the people. This is one aspect. Another aspect is to promote the local people with formation and the general society. The ideas and the proposals is a good proposals, but you need to pass the reality. The problem, the UNESCO at this moment, UNESCO, sorry, is not operative, is not able to change the things, has no money. But I think in the future it's necessary to think about these questions: the economy, education, equality, respect, new strategies, etc. For this aspect, I am very agree with these ideas. These are very clear ideas, but local money and formation are important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikel. Luna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pamela, and thank you, Dr. Miguel, for this very important information regarding the challenges and the opportunity that we have for Europe. We're moving now to North America with Dr. Susan. Dr. Susan Ross. She is an associate professor in the School of Indigenous and Canadian Studies at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. She has worked as an architect in Montreal, Berlin, and Ottawa, including as senior conservation architect in the federal government. She has been active in sustainable conservation advocacy for nearly 2 decades, notably with associations for preservation technology. She is co-chair of the National Roundtable on Heritage Education. Her teaching focus is on sustainable heritage conservation theory, policy and practice, historic urban landscape planning, and modern and industrial heritage. She co-edited a special issue of the Journal of Cultural Heritage Management and Sustainable Development on heritage and waste values. Her current work examines how deconstruction, salvage, and reuse can expand the role of the historic environment in dealing with waste and loss. She is the coordinator of the North America region, member of our World Heritage. She will introduce the case study of North America She will provide us with a reflection on these case studies, and then she will move to the guest expert that to present Pima Chua Win, Aki World Heritage Site, Mrs. Alison Hogg. The floor is yours, Susan.
Thank you, Luna. And thank you also to Pamela and Miguel for giving us such an excellent start, such great analysis of the European case studies. And of course, many of the challenges and potential strengths are applicable elsewhere, including in North America. So it's a great start. Hello, bonjour, kwe kwe. My name, as you've heard, is Susan Ross, and I send my greetings from Ottawa in Canada, which is located at the confluence of 3 rivers, and it is a crossroads of exchange for Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. And still today, it's the unceded territory of Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. In the sustainability team's original idea of this community-driven initiative, there would be equal representation from each World Heritage region. However, in North America, a complete self-evaluation was only submitted for 1 site. So this part of today's event will be a bit different, as we will reflect on this 1 case study, the Pimachawanaki World Heritage Site, which was submitted by the Pimachawanaki Corporation. And so we will hear more in detail what was learned from the site's self-evaluation, according to those questions that Pamela described earlier, that were set out by the Our World Heritage team, and that were then also discussed in a workshop with experts. So we thought that given this slightly different context, we would see this as an opportunity to look at least 1 case in more depth. And of course, there are many other sites in the world that will have related issues, and hopefully this will bring some needed inspiration. I'd like, however, to contextualize this single site by taking a brief look at North America's existing World Heritage Site. As you can see in this map from the World Heritage Center's website, there are 22 sites in the US and 18 sites in Canada, as well as 2 sites that are shared across the borders between these 2 countries. This is a proportionally lower number of World Heritage Sites than in Europe. Note also that a great many sites were nominated as natural sites. However, each of Canada and the US currently only has 1 mixed site. And these are actually fairly recent designations. North America has a wide range of World Heritage Sites, including very urban and even modern sites. However, a great many of the older nominations of so-called natural sites are in fact traditional lands of Indigenous peoples whose practices of stewardship long predate the creation of World Heritage Sites. However, these roles were not initially recognized in the nominations. The example we are about to hear about, which is a mixed site that was nominated by 4 First Nations together with provincial governments, thus represents a real breakthrough in creating a context to learn from Indigenous ways of conceptualizing what it means to care for the land. By the way, if any of you attended the 2nd Our World Heritage Indigenous Forum last Saturday, 2 of the speakers were from the nations that form part of Pimachawanaki, from the Blood Vein River and the Poplar River First Nations. If you did attend that event, you would have had a chance to hear some of the teachings directly from leading figures involved. And we can share the link to the video of that event in the chat, perhaps. On June 14th, we held a workshop to discuss the self-evaluation, and this is an overview of the participants. In addition to Alison Huff, the Executive Director of the Pimachawanaki Corporation, who presented their assessment and who will speak to us shortly, we heard from experts on World Heritage, on sustainable development and conservation, on natural site and cultural landscape protection, and on Indigenous heritage. They were all already quite familiar with the Pimachawanaki site and the long story of its nomination process. And so it was a very rich discussion. And we will share some of the strengths and challenges gleaned from this exchange. However, it's integrated in the presentation that will start shortly with Alison. And I will come back as part of that later, part of that presentation. But right now, I just want to acknowledge the contribution of these experts in the process. And I should mention also that that included, besides myself, Shabnam Inandailu and Ege Yildirim from our World Heritage Sustainability team. But let's start now by hearing from Alison, who is the Executive Director of Pimachauanaki Corporation. If you want to share your slides, Allison.
Well, hi everyone. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the invitation to speak with you today. It's a real honor to share the story of Pimachauanaki. It's a fairly young World Heritage Site. It's an ancient Anishinaabe cultural landscape and one of the oldest protected areas on the planet. My presentation will just briefly describe some of the challenges and solutions that we have in operationalizing this type of heritage. And then, as Susan mentioned, to whom we're very grateful for your encouragement and support, we'll summarize the comments made at the June 14th workshop on the sustainability self-assessment of Pimachauanaki. So as an introduction, I just thought I would start with the etymology. What does Pimachauanaki mean? So Pimachauan means living the good life, and Aki means the land, but it means more than just the land. It's about everything on, under, above, and including spiritual associations with the land. So together, Pimachauanaki means living a good life on the land and the land that gives life. And the name of the site really speaks to all dimensions of sustainability, environment, society, and economy, which presented a bit of a challenge for us in describing sustainability solutions because they're so intertwined and not easily categorized. But we did our best in the assessment, and I'll do my best here today. So I thought we would start with environmental sustainability, and preserving biodiversity is obviously a fundamental contribution to environmental sustainability. This is an Indigenous-led conservation effort. It's a place of great natural beauty and biodiversity. It's the largest conserved area in the North American Boreal Shield ecozone, and it's a mixed site. It's never suffered from adverse effects of development or neglect, armed conflict, destruction, or damage. So we had some trouble answering those questions. It's also considered the most complete and exceptional example of a place that provides testimony to the cultural tradition of Chiganawendama Kitakiminan, which means keeping the land. But it means more than just that. It's about a sacred duty to care for the land. It's a way of life that involves honoring the Creator's gifts, being respectful in all interactions with the land and its life, and maintaining harmonious relations with other people. It's a living cultural tradition that's very similar to the concept of sustainability, but we'll talk a little bit later about how adherence to this provides sustainability lessons. So we have our challenges are primarily climate change. We've seen increases in the size and frequency of wildfires, which can accelerate climate-driven changes in the boreal forest structure and composition. But because the size of Pimachauanaki is so great, it does provide ecological resilience in a changing climate, which is strengthened by the north-south extent of the site, which is spans a large range of the temperature climate gradient. We just actually went through the IUCN Conservation Outlook Assessment, and Pimachauanaki was given the top ranking. Threats are considered low to very low, and current conservation measures are considered sufficient to maintain this ranking. So how are we maintaining this ranking? Again, through adherence to the cultural tradition of Chiganawendama Kitakiminan. And we also have a monitoring and reporting program. For example, we're collecting information about migratory birds as sentinels change, and this is to inform habitat and attackness and climate change resilience. We've also created a geospatial library and information management system. And we're also, especially lately, very active in research partnerships and learning exchanges such as this. One of our proudest achievements in environmental sustainability is the use of innovative legislation that enables protective designation of lands through community-led land use planning processes. And it also prescribes a fair and equitable decision-making process. So for the site, there are 8 plans, including a master site management plan. And as you can see, there are 2 First Nations who have ancestral lands in both provinces, and so they each have 2 plans. And we're guided by these plans and the master site plan. They set out our shared goals and actions that are taken through collaboration. And we pool resources and jurisdictions of each partner agency. And again, there are 4 First Nations and 2 provincial governments. We typically prefer and encourage compliance-based approaches over enforcement of regulations where they apply, through education and awareness of the site's attributes and the values that they convey. So in terms of inclusive social development, this is promoted through a multi-level, multi-stakeholder partnership, which is the Pimatuan Aki Corporation. And it's considered a highly participatory forum for regular and continued dialogue and consensus-based, non-hierarchical decision-making. And this is the official local institution for site management. And in our work, we continue to empower as many people as possible in making progress toward our common goals. We demonstrate openness and mutual respect. It's worked very well, but we do have our challenges, which are mostly around preserving Anishinaabe, which means speaking the Ojibwe language, through cultural identity and strengthening site management capacity. But we're addressing these challenges by giving full consideration of Anishinaabe and protective measures, communications materials, training programs, visitor education, interpretive programs. The language is still very prominent in Pimatuan Aki communities and at all meetings of the partners. In fact, the laws of the land and skills and teachings about how to keep the land are in the language. We also support elder and youth land and language summer camps. We ensure that local and regional schools are provided with information about the site to incorporate in their curricula. We provide supplies for school programs. We engage elders and other knowledge keepers in recording place names and place-based knowledge, which are key intangible values shaping Anishinaabe connections with Pimatuan Aki. And finally, we've created employment opportunities through the Guardians program, which contribute to social and economic well-being. We have First Nation guardians hired in each community who monitor indicators of the cultural landscape and ecosystem health, and educate and engage future leaders in protection and management of the site. We're also active in communications and outreach through the Pimatuan Aki website, through social media channels, newsletters, regional gatherings, partnerships with museums, heritage centers, learned societies, and presentations to local and regional schools. We're also educating the international community about the principles of Chiganawendaman to encourage respectful and sustainable use of the land and preserve the world's biocultural diversity. We've also been asked by many people to share lessons that we've learned in nominating a mixed site, which is a rare achievement. It wasn't a lot harder than we thought to help others who are working to safeguard Indigenous cultural landscapes and natural heritage. And being recognized as a World Heritage Site has instilled a lot of pride, sense of ownership, and local responsibility. In terms of economic development, sustainability of the local economy is a big priority of the partnership. Typically, opportunities are pursued within the site if they contribute to the economic well-being of the communities and generate land-based livelihoods guided by Anishinaabe values. and cultural and ecological sustainability take priority. Progress on economic development initiatives has stalled due to the COVID-19 pandemic and a lack of resources, but they remain important priorities that will be renewed when circumstances allow. Our challenges are really around food insecurity, sustaining traditional livelihoods, and community infrastructure, including housing and overall economic viability of the region. In terms of our solutions, again, we've created employment and training opportunities through our Guardians program. We're also working on an ecocultural tourism concept and business plan, as well as guidelines for existing tourism operators to support sustainable economic development while reinforcing cultural values. And we've established an endowment fund to generate assured income to support the site. So when things like investment in local economic development potential might be realized as the market value of the fund grows. And we also began work on biocultural asset mapping and product design. So what are people currently doing in terms of land-based livelihoods? And this is to inform thinking about new enterprises and foster innovation, create social capital for a diversified regional economy. And lastly, again, through adherence to the cultural tradition, sustainable management and use of Pimicinaki's ecosystems and ecosystem services is assured. As ICMOS observed, the size of Pimicinaki and the strength of the cultural tradition make it an exceptional example of a belief that can be seen to be of universal significance. And I would submit that we're very lucky to have Pimicinaki in the world, and you being here advances our appreciation and sustainability of this rare and special place. And I hope we can contribute solutions, help people recognize patterns, inform policy recommendations towards sustainable management of our world heritage for the next 50 years or more. I just want to say thank you again for your interest, and I'd like to hand it over now to Susan Ross, our region coordinator, to show you the summary slides from the June 14th workshop. Miigwech, thank you.
Miigwech, Allison, were you going to continue to show them on your presentation?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll do this again. There you go.
Right. Miigwech. Thank you so much. So as Allison has alluded to, it's very clear in trying to analyze Pimicinaki and its strengths and challenges. It's difficult to separate the different categories. Everything seems to work together. Everything seems to be intertwined. So our presentation of the strengths and challenges are not separated into the packages of environment, social, economic, and peace and governance. It all comes together. So there are a lot of strengths, and so we've tried to put some additional language here. Some of this has already been explained by Allison, and some of it was sort of reiterated with new language by the experts. Of course, the fact that we're talking about an Indigenous-driven management mechanism through the way that Pimicinaki Corporation works is a really important part, and this reflects that you have a very non-hierarchical participatory idea of governance rooted in consensus decision-making. And one point that came up in the discussion was how these ideas are really embedded in older models and in kinship models of how the land is used and how families help each other for one thing, in order to ensure resilience and develop resilience. On the other hand, a really interesting part of what's happening is the way that traditional management is coming together with contemporary tools. So an example of this is, Allison has mentioned, the biocultural asset mapping. And this is now being considered as a means for thinking about different forms of sustainable economic development. Sometimes the elements that are strengths are, you know, just so pervasive, it's hard to pull them apart. One of them is around language. Of course, language is extremely important in understanding the ideas, and the language builds and connects all the places through stories and names to, you know, intangible ideas, which are part of the principles of that are then built into the approach. Notably, we've heard about the cultural tradition of keeping the land, and it becomes really evident this is another way of talking about sustainability that we can learn from. An additional idea that came up through the discussion with expertise was just a basic recognition of how important a large area of land, of protected land like this, is in helping to mitigate climate change. And then another thought or discussion point was around the unusual and really important role of something like the Guardian program in helping ensure compliance across both customary and contemporary laws. So as you see, like, this is sort of really an overarching group of strengths that bring, you know, from governance to language to ideas of how you bridge nature and culture in connection with that. It's really pretty powerful strengths to learn from. So I think then we'll look a little bit at the challenges that we discussed. And I have to say that there was initial recognition that there seemed to be more strengths than challenges. But then when we started talking about it, the challenges are pretty big, but also that the strengths can really help most of the challenges, and that we have to be thinking forward, because many of the challenges are more about planning for the future and for potential risks. So the experts, if you like, in the discussion, were wanting to push forward a bit more to, well, what if it didn't continue quite the way it is starting now? And one of those areas was around the question of climate change, and thinking just about how, with climate change affecting all forms of life and potentially the land itself, planning to think about how will this new land or this changing land be sustained. So that was one concern. And then, of course, Alison has alluded to economic questions. So this came up again, in particular around ensuring that there are employment possibilities for young people, and also as an economic consideration, concerns about food security. And that, of course, can be something that climate change could have a huge impact on. And also as an economic concern, and this is again future thinking and planning for more tourist development likely to happen, and ensuring that tourism development happens in a way that will balance cultural and ecological integrity with the economic benefits. And already alluded to is the idea that language is a strength, but language preservation is really going to be important to address all of the different challenges, because, and as Alison has alluded to, it's being used, Anishinaabe is being used as much as possible in the different contexts within which capacity building and governance is happening. And this is incredibly important to ensure passing on of the understanding of principles and traditional governance. So ensuring the sustainability of the current laws over the longer term is an extremely important idea, to make sure that we anticipate potential pressures. And I guess continuing to follow the best practices that will keep the governance as it is, or to develop it more in continuation, and keeping the partnerships that it's built on strong, you know, ensuring that it's a very interesting model of partnerships, and making sure that that is sustained. And then finally, recognizing that sustainability is also about process as much as the outcomes. So keeping this process active. So these were the ideas that we discussed. And I don't know if Alison wants to add anything more about the discussion, or to conclude our reflection on the case study. It's certainly been very, very rewarding to be part of this and to bring it into the Our World Heritage Forum.
I just wanted to say thank you, Susan. That was a really great overview, and it was an amazing workshop. Hearing from all the experts, learned a lot, and ways to reflect on this a lot more. And yeah, I've learned a lot already today too. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Susan and dear Alison. It's a very, let's say, spiritual introduction to a very beautiful and you know, it gives us a very nice reflection, and it is really worth to be preserved and to safeguard. And thank you for all the conclusions and raising the challenges that this site might have. We will move now to the Arab region presentation, outcomes, and so on. It's a little bit, may I say, odd that I'm going to present myself, because I am the responsible for the Arab region case studies and the workshop. Well, I'm an architect and advocate and expert on cultural heritage. I had developed a passion for architecture and became a firm believer in the role of architect to preserve heritage, being in a country with a history of ancient civilization. I'm in Syria. I'm from Syria. I graduated with a bachelor degree in architectural engineering from Damascus University on 93, and I had a DOSS from École de Chaillot program at the Lebanese University in 2000. I am currently a partner and executive manager of ACE, an architectural and engineering company that was founded by my father, Luay Rajab, in 1969. My influence is mostly noticeable in my passion for civic engagement and my contribution to fundamental issues that can have a real impact on the community. I led and coordinated and executed numbers of architectural and cultural heritage works for private and public sectors, and also I'm expert for UNESCO, UNESCO, GIZ, Director General of Antiquity, Ministry of Culture in Syria, for the ADA in Saudi Arabia, for MWNF, this is a non-governmental organization, Museum with No Frontier, for IUAV, University of Venice, for the IFPO and others, and I'm also a member of ICOMOS and very delighted to be a member of OWHT. I'm going now to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. We had, for the call of case studies, we had several case studies that participated with us, and we wanted for sure more, but this is the one that we had in it, but we don't have enough time to do that. We have the historic Jeddah, the gate to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, that was prepared and by Aktam al-Bakir, the historic Cairo of Egypt by Dr. Ala al-Habashi, Nubian monument from Abu Simbel to Philae in Egypt, Abdel Majid Osama, Wadi al-Hitan in Egypt, Dr. Muhammad Samir Antar, Dr. Muhammad Talat al-Hinnawi. We had Bosra, ancient city in Daraa, Syria. It was prepared by Lina Qtaifan and Tahani Namora. Al-Khalil Old Town in Hebron, Palestine by Mr. Imad Hamdan. And the historic site of Petra, Jordan by Mr. Abdullah Abu Rumman. At-Turayf district in Ad-Diriyah, Saudi Arabia by Mr. James Sterry. These are the results of that prepared by the OWH team for the analysis, for the self-assessments and in-depth report for the cities, for the site that we had. We can see the sites and all the result that we had. Of course, as a general result, I'm going to go through them very fast. This is the environmental sustainability. the inclusive social development. Of course, you can see at the bottom of the screen from 0, we don't have any information about the site. 0.1 to 1.99, something should be addressed urgently. From 2 to 2.99, something is under study or under modification. From 3 to 3.99, something has been done but not achieved or well implemented. From 4 to 5, best practices. So we can see that the sites are varied between something is under study to best practices. Inclusive economic development, we had no information about Al Turayf district and Ad-Diriyah. And we have, as a conclusion, you can see the highest row give us the resume of all the sites. Peace and security, we have lots of danger in this area. The average of how does the site management help with conflict prevention and or resolution. Average, how does the site management protect heritage during conflict. Average of how. Now this I think that refers that Egypt is we see the zeros, no information, because these sites in this country, thank God, they're not under the armed conflict or there is no crisis in them. So this is why there is no information. This is so the reflection of this might need to be modified. The governance, most of them are best practices. And the general average. An average environmental sustainability, we have 3.29. An average of inclusive social development, 3.39. The average of inclusive economic development, 1.95. Average of peace and security, 1.67. Average of governance is 4.10. So the general average fall at 2.88. That something is under study or under modification. We have gathered on June workshop. We had reviewed, we had seen all the case studies that had participated with us. We had reviewed all these results with the participants and with the expert that had participated with us to review all these case studies. And then we had came up with recommendations and conclusions for the Arab state culture and natural heritage that need to be addressed. And I'm going to just point them fast. Review the registration criteria of the heritage registered on the World Heritage List, because some of the World sites has been registered before the 18th, and afterward the criteria were a little bit more developed. So maybe we need to review these sites with the new criteria. Better delimitation of sites, specific area and or site buffer zone. This is very important because the buffer zone is directly related to the site itself, and without it, it will have a very bad impact on the site itself. Deeper cooperation involving many responsible actors for the same site. That means we need governmental bodies, we need non-governmental organizations, we need people from the civil society, people who live inside it or around it to achieve by many factors. Assure more participative approach on the site, integrating local community not only economically but also in the decision-making processes. Modernize approach that aim to counter vulnerability of sites, taking into consideration new social, economic, and environmental issues. Enhance the site management plans and involve sustainability as an important component for better management. Promote inclusive economic measures to correct any negative impact of this heritage site and natural for sure. Upgrade the follow-up about the local communities. needs and observe carefully the way that economic, social, and environmental issues will have impact on the local communities and on heritage sites. We had observed in so many places, like the old cities, for example, when they were a part of them were transferred to be a heavy tourist area. All the function has been changed from, for example, from residential places into restaurants or shops and so on. This had a very dangerous impact on these living old cities. Diversify new method of income other than heritage sites dependence, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. This is something that we need to face, and we don't know really how much it will last. We hope that it will last 2 days, but we don't know how much it will impact all the cultural heritage and natural heritage. To highlight the governance structure in each country regarding site management, to be more transparent on what has, is, and will be done on the heritage sites, as well as any other data aiming to benchmark positive progresses, promote successful heritage site management cases to be followed as examples for similar practices and actions for other heritage sites. We had found that not only from the case studies, but also from the experience of the people who participated in the workshop, that we have cultural and natural sites that had very good experience, but others need to be followed, and we will have our expert, Mr. Murad, to highlight. To notice and advertise connections with the Sustainable Development Goals, because it can raise the profile of heritage and bringing funding resources for one of these same goals, engaging heritage actively in sustainability, promote education as a tool, not only regarding the site, but in a way it could serve other purposes for people. Toward enhance the documentation of international heritage in professional ways, such as traditions, because they are inherently under danger as well as tangible. Establish a regional funding scheme for conducting sustainability studies in heritage sites, especially climate change impact. Developing local cultural heritage education programs along with international ones. And a matter of fact, we have a very, very few education programs that did teach the cultural heritage, the preservation, the restoration. We had one in Syria, and I think there's one in Egypt and in some other countries. But we need to develop these programs much further, because we are in lack of it in the Arab region. Keeping sustainability indicators records for different sites in one unified platform online to help site managers and government learning from other experiences and follow similar applicable measures. We have with us two of our of the expert that has reviewed the case studies. We have Mr. Murad Bouteflika. He's an architect specialized in preservation and on mise en valeur of the historical monuments and sites. Had a research doctor of the Polytechnic of Bari in Italy in architectural projection for the countries of the Mediterranean. Institute of Architecture of the University of Bleda, Algeria, and a member of the Committee of Experts of the Algerian Ministry of Culture for the conservation and restoration of the Algerian cultural heritage. Held the position of Central Director of Conservation and Cultural Heritage Restoration at the Algerian Ministry of Culture from 2009 until 2020. And we have also Mr. Nizar Al-Adarbe. He's a project management specialist with 15 years of experience in managing heritage, development, and tourism projects in Jordan and Euromed region. From 2015 to 2021, he worked as the chief of party of the USAID Sustainable Cultural Heritage through engagement of local communities project SCHEP at the American Center of Research. He managed several heritage regional projects during his work at the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities and at the Department of Antiquities. He contributed the formulation of policies and strategies on culture, tourism, and heritage in Jordan and the Middle East. He served as a World Heritage expert and a review of World Heritage nomination files, preparing State of Conservation report and site management plans. Nizar has an MA in Conservation and Cultural Resource Management from the Yarmouk University and Tourism from the Hashemite University. He's an active member of ICOMOS Jordan since July 2021, and he joined USAID Jordan as project management specialist. Dr. Murad will speak in French. He will give us his presentation, and I will sharing with you his presentation in English, so you can read it directly from the screen. Please, the floor is yours. Monsieur Mourad, s'il vous plaît, vous pouvez commencer.
Oui.
Merci.
Merci, Madame Luna. Je suis très content d'être avec vous aujourd'hui pour en fait restituer en synthèse toutes les conclusions des différentes sessions qui ont eu lieu auparavant et qui ont permis de passer en revue en fait dans la région des États arabes un nombre de cas importants de sites sur lesquels je pense qu'il faut revenir un peu et focaliser sur un certain nombre de points. Je ne sais pas si je dois intervenir et la traduction arrivera à la fin ou bien je peux intervenir d'emblée sans interruption.
Non, vous pouvez commencer à parler et la traduction, c'est déjà, je pense que vous pouvez faire la traduction sur l'écran.
Oui, oui.
Oui, alors vous pouvez parler en français comme vous voulez et les gens pourraient lire en anglais.
Alors, je vous ai suivi attentivement et vous avez remarquablement, Madame Luna, restitué toutes les, on va dire, les conclusions et les recommandations qu'on a pu obtenir par une lecture attentive et une analyse attentive des cas qui ont concerné la région des États arabes. Mais de mon point de vue, il y a 3 points essentiels sur lesquels je pense on peut revenir rapidement pour pouvoir introduire l'approche à l'approche collaborative, à la gestion des sites entre les États de la même région.
Alors, puisqu'on n'a pas un interpréteur qui traduit directement, je vais vous interrompre pour traduire ce que vous avez parlé. D'accord. Mr. Murad I will translate directly, me and Leo, our rapporteur, because we couldn't really find limited time somebody to make the interpretation from French to English. But the presentation, when he started the presentation, you can just read it from the screen, so we don't have 2 voices going on. Mr. Murad is glad to be with us, and he's happy with the conclusions and recommendation that I did presented, and we did really summarize it very, very carefully. And he wants to highlight 3 points, very important points from his point of view.
Les cas qui ont été sélectionnés ont exprimé, de mon point de vue, de nombreux éléments de vulnérabilité. Nous avons pu, par exemple, déceler une intégrité paysagère fragile, parfois un abandon de parties entières de sites ou de sites entiers, parfois des constructions en ruine. Donc, il y a décelables dans l'ensemble des sites qui ont été choisis pour la région des États arabes, des facteurs de vulnérabilité qui ont un impact sur les attributs d'authenticité qui caractérisent ces sites et qui posent en même temps des défis clairs de gestion.
I'm going to try to translate. I didn't really do that that much. He's talking about the vulnerability of some of the sites from the cases of the other sites. We had seen that there's the cultural surround. I think, Mr. Murad, you understand me. There's a very part of them are not well preserved, and some of them are endangered, and they need to be taken care of at the site itself. Yes.
Il faut insister sur le couple vulnérabilité et risque sur les attributs d'authenticité. Nous avons remarqué
we had to insist on the couple of vulnerability and risk. Yes.
La vulnérabilité et l'impact de la vulnérabilité sur les attributs d'authenticité.
And the impact of the vulnerability of on the authenticity of these sites, of these heritage sites.
Il y a donc dans de nombreux sites un risque réel de perte de l'authenticité, des attributs d'authenticité qui, de mon point de vue, dans les prochaines années, doit faire l'objet d'une attention particulière dans les efforts de gestion de ces sites.
So he thinks that some of these sites really is endangered of losing its authenticity if we don't take good care of it during the coming years.
Et ça me permet de dire que le point central en fait du travail qu'il faudra faire dans les prochaines années, c'est de construire de nouveaux défis à la gestion de ces sites.
Défi, ce que vous voulez dire par défi?
En fait, il faut inscrire les processus de gestion de ces sites dans de nouveaux challenges qui permettront de prendre en charge toutes les lacunes que nous avons observées jusque-là.
D'accord. So we need to observe very carefully I'm not really. I need them phrase by phrase until I understand the phrase. The second phrase
les risques qui sont encourus par les sites aujourd'hui doivent être pris en charge par de nouveaux modèles de gestion.
The risks that these sites are facing, they need to be added to the challenges of the risk management of these sites.
Oui, the new management. We have to invent a new management for these sites.
Okay.
Il y a, évidemment, quand on parle de défis de gestion, il y a plusieurs points qu'il faut clarifier.
If we want to talk about the défi, vous allez defection of this site management. There's several points that we need to talk about.
Un premier point a été largement abordé par les collègues avant moi, qui me paraît effectivement fondamental, c'est le point relatif à la gouvernance.
The most important point that was raised by the other colleague previously in this session is the management of the site.
Oui, la gouvernance.
La gouvernance, the governance of the site.
Et quand on parle de la gouvernance, en fait, on parle de la nécessité ou l'obligation de mettre en place de nouvelles approches à la gestion des sites pour rendre interopérables les acteurs qui interviennent sur ces sites. C'est-à-dire, par exemple, une approche plus collaborative ou plus participative.
when we talk about governance, when we are talking about implement. Can you just repeat?
Il y a la nécessité ou l'obligation de mettre en place une approche de gestion plus collaborative et plus participative.
There's the necessity to make approaches in the governance of these sites
more participative or more collaborative.
And more collaborative. Okay. I'm going to interrupt you. Est-ce que ça tombe dans votre présentation ou c'est la même chose?
Je commence maintenant ma présentation. Ça, c'était une petite introduction pour clarifier pourquoi j'ai orienté ma présentation vers ce qui va venir.
Well, he's saying that he had to make an introduction to clarify why he made this presentation.
En fait, j'ai recouru à cette petite introduction pour expliquer que la gestion du patrimoine culturel dans la région des États arabes a besoin de construire de nouvelles approches.
Well, he needed that because the approach to the cultural heritage in the Arab region need a new updated approaches.
Évidemment, ce que je vais dire maintenant a la traduction en anglais sur l'écran. Donc, les collègues peuvent me suivre en lisant ce qui est proposé à l'écran.
And now you can follow Mr. Bouteflika from the screen. You can read from the screen.
En fait, toute ma réflexion part d'une conviction que la gestion durable du patrimoine culturel est un processus multidisciplinaire et dynamique que de nombreux pays ont placé au cœur de leurs actions, visant à promouvoir et à protéger une conservation intégrale de leurs biens culturels, en fixant notamment des normes pour l'élaboration de politiques appropriées et en construisant des protocoles d'intervention technique adaptés. À cet effet, d'importants travaux d'analyse menés ces dernières années ont révélé que les pays qui ont réussi à labelliser leur patrimoine culturel ont en réalité adopté un ensemble de bonnes pratiques et de méthodes traitant des questions de conservation, de développement urbain et rural, de normes en matière de données, de gestion institutionnelle, etc., qui reposent essentiellement sur de nouveaux modèles de gouvernance participative et collaborative. C'est donc sur ces modèles donc de gouvernance participative et collaborative qu'il faudra construire toute action et activité future nécessaire pour une correcte protection du patrimoine culturel aux échelles nationales et régionales, en privilégiant davantage une approche intégrée au patrimoine culturel qui combine sa promotion et sa protection et la protection de sa diversité, ainsi que la gouvernance participative à sa gestion, en reconnaissant la nécessité d'associer à la prise de décision tous les acteurs et en investissant des thématiques aussi variées que le renforcement institutionnel, la mise en place et la mise en œuvre de projets de réhabilitation intégrés, l'évaluation permanente de la consistance du patrimoine architectural et archéologique, la conduite surtout de projets pilotes à l'échelle de développement local qui s'intéressent à la gestion et au développement social et économique durable des territoires. Alors, il y a évidemment une autre question qui se pose. Est-ce que toute cette réflexion peut être mise en place avec une relative acuité dans la région des États arabes? Nous pensons que oui, parce que dans la région qui est la nôtre, le patrimoine culturel joue un rôle particulier. Il est un élément indispensable de la diversité culturelle qui caractérise la région. Il offre un environnement de qualité respectueux des contraintes de l'écosystème dont il est produit. Il est aussi matrice de développement fondée sur les atouts de territoires similaires et surtout, il nécessite une approche sociale pour favoriser sa préservation qui existe fortement dans l'ensemble des États de la région. En même temps, le patrimoine culturel est dans la région des États arabes au cœur de beaucoup de stratégies de développement où les réflexions sur l'urbanisme, sur l'attractivité touristique sur la modernisation du cadre de vie, sur le développement économique et la cohésion sociale. Toutes ces questions ne sont pas dissociables de celles relatives donc aux questions de patrimoine culturel et de ses valeurs. S'il est admis que plusieurs pays de la région arabe sont reconnus pour avoir une législation ancienne de constitution, de protection et de conservation du patrimoine, mais en même temps des outils pertinents de gestion et de valorisation que ces pays ont su mettre en place depuis de nombreuses décennies, les expériences cumulées ne suscitent pas encore de demande d'expertise auprès d'elles sur les questions de protection et de valorisation du patrimoine culturel, alors que les compétences et les réseaux de professionnels existent réellement. Nous défendons fortement l'idée qu'il faille recommander d'installer un vade-mecum sur une approche collaborative à la protection et à la mise en valeur du patrimoine culturel de la région, qui aurait pour ambition de diffuser horizontalement et non plus exclusivement verticalement les leçons des expériences vécues par chacun des pays en y organisant 3 éléments essentiels que sont la mobilité, le partage d'expériences, le transfert et le partage de bonnes pratiques et de savoir-faire. C'est dans une perspective donc d'intérêt mutuel que les pays et les territoires partenaires, qui pour rappel appartiennent à la même aire géographique et culturelle, confrontent leurs pratiques dans divers domaines de compétences. Ces échanges d'expériences et de savoir-faire pourraient donc avoir un rôle formateur auprès des agents qui bénéficient donc d'un regard extérieur remettant en cause leurs propres pratiques. La coopération horizontale, du fait de sa transversalité, mobilise de nombreux acteurs et l'expertise bilatérale qui en émerge participe à l'évolution des politiques publiques de l'ensemble des pays concernés, respectifs désormais d'un bénéfice qui s'appelle le bénéfice de solidarité. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Luna, and thank you everyone for this opportunity. Just to move ahead quickly to not to take more time, so I'm just giving a commentary on the discussion that we had in the previous session with our colleagues and with the different experts who attended, and from the presentation that we heard from our colleague, Mr. Imad Hamdan, the General Director of Hebron Rehabilitation Committee, and the continuous discussion with the architect Luna Rajab and our colleague Dr. Murad Bouteflika on the different aspects that have been resulted from the case studies presented from the Arab region. However, we decided that in order to give additional dimension of this debate and discussion, it's important sometimes to highlight special case studies. And in our case study here, we talk about heritage under occupation. Therefore, I'd like to give some small comments and notes of this discussion, and as a reflection on the synthesis and outcomes from the Arab states, to highlight the case study of Hebron. As you all know that our World Heritage Initiative, and with its dedication together, we can shape the future of World Heritage. And the aim of this debate series, it is important to adopt another dimension of the debate to consider exceptional case studies. Hebron, as you all know, is an exemplary case study illustrating the challenges and solutions of integrating heritage and sustainable development that even highlighted key concepts of sustainability in World Heritage through engagement of people and the grasp of resilience. The situation in Palestine is not merely a state of conflict or an area under crisis or a war zone, but suppressed state under fierce occupation. Thus, we talk here about the heritage preservation under occupation. The risk is not just like any other in the region, despite its site inscribed in the list of World Heritage in danger, as all you know. Excuse me just 1 second. Don't know, the screen just stopped. Just 1 moment, excuse me. Strange. I think I have a technical problem with the document.
Is it possible that you summarize it?
Suddenly it stopped. The document just stopped. So I'll continue until I can open again the program. So I'll try to continue until it can go on again. So talking about the risk is not just like any other in the region. Despite it's inscribed on the World Heritage List in danger, the methodical suppression and destruction of the Israeli occupation with the settlers and the use of its power and tools to uproot the people from their own heritage and to abort any initiative or interventions for the preservation and rehabilitation projects, such as the projects presented from Hebron. Unfortunately, it's not continuing the page, so I'll try to remember what I wrote in the document. Just 1 second, sorry, I don't know
we can give the floor. We can go.
Yeah, now it's working. Now
Okay.
it's working, sorry. Just to start wherever I arrived. So just to move quickly, even recently, the settlers and occupation authorities in the news are pushing for the construction of the separation fence near Batir and the building new illegal settlements on the occupied lands, in addition to the recent stoppage of the occupation authorities of the rehabilitation of the old market in Hebron. As you all know that the 3 sites registered like Hebron and Batir and the old city of Jerusalem and its walls on the World Heritage List of danger, that these these sites on the list of heritage in danger is not enough in itself with the regular mechanisms and tools that are there. Therefore, we need to work on other mechanisms in order to support any initiative that such as the Hebron Rehabilitation Committee's work. I just need to give a brief on their work and how important it is to support such initiatives. So the Hebron Rehabilitation Committee is a semi-governmental organization dedicated to the revitalization of the old city of Hebron. The HRC offices are located within the old city itself. The main components of the projects of the HRC was including the securing of decent houses, infrastructure, and services that stimulate economic activity and the provision of legal assistance to protect the residents and their rights. As a result of the program, several thousands of new residents have moved into the old city of Hebron. The economic conditions are improving and the social fabric of the area has been strengthened by social integration, awareness, and community participation. Therefore, the general recommendation that we are giving here in this presentation and the synthesis is that we need to have additional support for the efforts of rehabilitation projects in Palestine, especially in Hebron, and the outstanding work of the HRC. In this sense, an urgent conservation fund can be established to back these efforts, despite the generous support of several donors and the Palestinian authorities, but additional funds are badly needed as well. Consider Palestine and its occupied territories under a new category maybe, or a special program under the World Heritage in Danger, in order to provide additional mechanisms and global support to work towards a continuous efforts for the civil society and to support their initiatives in heritage preservation. Consider maybe an annual watch missions and the program with international members from the heritage experts to support the efforts of the HRC and other organizations, in addition to producing regular reports on the progress on the ground. At the end, the last point, despite all challenges that we have seen and faced, it is important to consider Hebron and the work of the HRC as a success story in terms of the innovation in heritage preservation and rehabilitation, with all aspects related to respecting international standards, active engagement of the public, and the protection of the Palestinian identity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nizar, and thank you very much, Dr. Murad, for this, let's say, specific and important intervention. And I would like now, we are late for our schedule, but we have started a little bit late. Hope we can have enough time to make a good session of questions and answers. Our ICOMOS expert will make a commentary now. Dr. Emeritus Professor Architect Sofia Avgerino Colonia, from the National Technical University of Athens, Greece, School of Architectural Engineering, a formal director of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning and the Laboratory of Spatial Planning and Urban Development. Dr. Sofia was elected as member of ICOMOS board in 2008, 2011, 2014. She is a member of ICOMOS Academy, President of International Scientific Committee on Historic Towns and Villages, CIVVIH, ICOMOS, in 2010 to 2018, Vice President of ICOMOS Hellenic, President of the Association of Greek Urbanists and Planners, CEPOX. The floor is yours, Dr. Sofia. The microphone kindly.
Sorry.
Thank
you,
so
Luna. Thank you to our World Heritage for inviting ICOMOS working group on SDGs. I'm represent here ICOMOS working group on SDGs. Thank you very much. This session was very rich and full of information and very interesting matters to discuss. Today, I will give you some information about ICOMOS work on sustainability and SDGs and a proposal on the end. ICOMOS is a global NGO, democratic, not-profit international organization committed to furthering the conservation, protection, use and enhancement of the world's cultural heritage. It is dedicated to the development of knowledge and the promotion of cultural heritage significance. And its doctrinal text, the first doctrinal text of ICOMOS, the Venice Charter, is fundamental and remains a pioneer text as it was the first to introduce the notion of sustainability for cultural heritage, declaring that the monuments should be preserved and protected so that the future generations can receive what the former one have bequeathed to humanity. ICOMOS, as an advisory body to the World Heritage Committee for the implementation of the UNESCO World Heritage Convention, evaluates nominations and advises of the state of coordination of properties inscribed on the World Heritage List. ICOMOS established in 2014 the SDG Working Group. In 2020, ICOMOS national committees, international scientific committees and working groups have actively developed important reflections, work and reports in many relevant fields related with sustainable development goals and in line with the United Nations program. Among these are those concerning risks and human rights approach to heritage, the climate change, nature-culture links, peace, as the case of Syria and Iraq. During 2020, ICOMOS SDGs Working Group started with a work plan to further the mainstreaming and integration of cultural heritage and sustainable development processes in alignment with the 2017 ICOMOS Action Plan on Cultural Heritage and Localizing the SDGs. A major activity in early 2020 was ICOMOS participation in the 10th session of the World Urban Forum, organized by UN and held in Abu Dhabi. During this event, a memorandum of understanding was signed between ICOMOS and UN Habitat, creating a wide framework for collaboration focusing on urban regeneration, reconstruction, and climate change. This MOU created a broad framework for collaboration between the two organizations, with a particular focus on urban regeneration and reconstruction, especially in the context of climate change. ICOMOS participated later in the COVID-19 statement in April 2020 that was endorsed by the President of UN General Assembly in June. During the pandemic, ICOMOS continued to contribute to the Culture 2030 goal campaign, as it is the global advocacy platform for the inclusion of culture in the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. The working group began a webinar series around the 5P of 2030 Agenda: People, Planet, Prosperity, Peace, and Partnership. The webinars continued in early 2021 with a large participation of an engaged audience. During the 20th General Assembly last December, ICOMOS voted massively for a declaration of climate and ecological emergency. In parallel, in collaboration with Europa Nostra, ICOMOS developed a European Cultural Heritage Green Paper, which focuses on the role of cultural heritage in achieving the ambitions of the European Green Deal. One other major initiative prepared by the working group on SDGs since 2018 is the ICOMOS SDGs Policy Guidance. This document is a basic resource and tool for all stakeholders of heritage and sustainable development, demonstrating and highlighting the links between cultural heritage and all SDGs, and recommending policies and actions to promote this relationship. The policy guidance for heritage and development actors is based on ICOMOS doctrinal texts and ICOMOS scientific expertise, and elaborated within ICOMOS global membership from all the 5 regions and all areas of scientific expertise of ICOMOS scientific committees and the ICOMOS working group. This document was developed by the working group on SDGs with 5 contributing authors, between them our Ege Yildirim. Many inputs and peer reviews were provided by more than 70 ICOMOS experts coming from 20 national committees and 13 international scientific committees, both in person or online. The documents illustrates the ways in which heritage can address the SDGs and demonstrates the potential of harnessing heritage in achieving sustainable development. Inspired and based in the United Nations Transforming Our World, the Agenda 2030, and the 5P, People, Planet, Prosperity, Peace, and Partnerships. This document is interrelated with SDGs and is intended for heritage and development actors alike. The main aim is double: to guide ICOMOS members and heritage professionals in adopting a sustainable development perspective in their heritage practices and aligning them to the SDGs, and to engage development actors and raise awareness of the potential contribution of heritage practices to sustainable development processes. ICOMOS represents, through this document, a first attempt at providing a policy framework for all actors, including international organizations, national and local governments, businesses, civil society, and expert organizations. With its constantly evolving doctrines and methodologies, ICOMOS, as the advisor of UNESCO for the World Heritage Matters, seeks to mobilize its adaptive capacity for the SDGs to respond to the current needs of the professional and broader society. ICOMOS was and remains a network of open exchange and cooperation, a source of inspiration, a repository of shared knowledge and expertise, a corpus that monitors heritage, but above all, an undisputed universal authority on heritage sustainable conservation. Another new offer from ICOMOS to the international discussion on heritage matters is the guidance on developing and revising World Heritage tentative lists that has been elaborated with the assistance of IUCN, ICROM, and the UNESCO World Heritage Center within the context of the ongoing reform of the nomination process. It has been prepared on the basis of extensive consultation from ICOMOS national committees and international scientific committees, but also from several international experts from all regions of the world, which together reflected a wide variety of expertise. This document highlights the difficulties to reconcile the characteristics and values of such sites with the key concepts of the World Heritage Convention, but more fundamentally with the purposes of the World Heritage Convention. One of the strengths of the World Heritage Convention is the way it has reflected changing perceptions of heritage over time, and the fields of SDGs are very challenging. Our work today is very interesting. Personally, I give priority to the quality approach when studying cases. But I have to say that your work contains special recordings that are made through a new perception and in an original view. A challenge faced by management plans of World Heritage properties is their integration into modern life, and of course their connection with the SDGs and especially the 5 Ps. The conditions created in the past few years bring us before the responsibility to fully review the urban and the broader spatial design from a financial and environmental point of view, in order to make culture and the sustainable preservation of cultural and natural heritage take center stage. Nowadays, cultural and natural heritage are recognized as necessary components of sustainability. Within this context, culture and heritage stand out as the main objectives for sustainable urban development. With these considerations, I would like to invite you all to continue this dialogue and discussion on sustainable development and heritage. SDGs Working Group of ICOMOS has welcomed in the beginning of 21 Gabriel Gaballero, appointed by the board as the new ICOMOS SDGs focal point. He is very welcomed, but let me notice the enthusiastic contribution of Ege Gildirim as the focal point on SDGs for ICOMOS from 2016 to 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sofia, and for this important information about ICOMOS International Council for Monuments and Sites. And we know how important this organization and how important it's the resolutions and the information that we have from it. Thank you. We'll give the floor.
Thank you. Excuse me, Luna.
Yes.
I would like to thank Ege because she gives to all the link for the document about the policy guidance for heritage and development actors of ICOMOS.
Okay, Thank you. Thank you again.
It's very much related with the work of our World Heritage.
The matter of fact, we need to thank Ege for many things. Okay, we'll move to our next expert, Dr. Naber Ghazal Aswad. He's a member of the Syrian Society for Conservation of Wildlife. This is a Syrian NGO, and this society is a member of BirdLife International and a member of IUCN. Dr. Naber Ghazal Aswad graduated from the University of Nottingham in 2005. He is currently a conservation officer at BirdLife Middle East in Amman, coordinating the conservation and awareness activities of the EU Life Egyptian Vulture New Life project in the Middle East. He is a member of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas, WCPA, Expert Assessment Group for Green List, EAGLE, and the Middle East Arabian Peninsula Plants Specialists Group, APPSG, and member of the IUCN Regional Conservation Forum for Middle East. He has been a vice president of OSMI since 2013 and assisted in editing and revising both the hard and digital Arabic version of the Field Guide for Birds of the Middle East. He chaired the Syrian Society for the Conservation of Wildlife and was involved in various activities for the conservation and for field surveys with SSCW team. He was a senior lecturer at the University of Aleppo in Syria between 2010 and 2015. Dr. Naber, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luna, for this invitation and for this kind opening eye, I think, to this topic. It is an important eye. So, and it's, despite its importance and its significant importance to everyone, we can consider that World Heritage Site it's World Heritage Site, it's not national one. So if it's a global importance, so we have to cooperate on a global level, everyone without borders. So this is one of the points that has to be done easily. Reviving the World Heritage Site, that it's heritage sites cannot live without a human, without biodiversity. So biodiversity is a crucial impact factor of the conservation that will add a benefit to the conservation and for the protecting sites from any destruction, any kind of any other factors. So within the Syrian Society, conserve biodiversity, mainly in the region, in the country. But we noted that we have to conserve the livelihood of the people. We have to conserve their areas, their habitat, their location, just to reach our target of conserving biodiversity. So if we couldn't manage to help them to thrive in their habitat, then the conservation would be nonsense. So they will have a bad effect on that one. So this is crucial impact that it has to be adopted. And this is a policy that been adopted by several organizations on the national, on international and global level, like IUCN. It is one of the cornerstone of IUCN of the conservation. It has now merged in its program the livelihood of people and the conservation of species that are endangered. So the same would be applied in different organizations as well, like BirdLife. One of the projects that I'm coordinating, Egyptian Vulture, we noted that that project, that Egyptian Vulture, it is embedded in history and embedded in culture sites in Egypt, in the Balkan, in the Middle East. And it is crucial to conserve that species. We have to look at its history, and it has how it's used to roam with those civilization, with those sites. It's been we have to have some anthropological studies just to know exactly what the fact that people, what the concept that people look at that bird at this site, and that open our eyes to many facts, many ideas, just to use it in the future for conservation of that species and similar species as well in the region and on the global level. I wouldn't go far in that discussion. We know we are behind time for more cooperation and more like dialogue, just to, as Dr. Murad says, we have to move for cooperation beyond border, beyond any kind of entity. It is in general conservation and protection for everyone. And all the case studies that have been sent, it showed that there are some kind of biodiversity. The management of the site will reflect on biodiversity, and vice versa, conservation of biodiversity will reflect on the conservation of site. So it is not kind of like one benefit. Everyone will benefit from it on all the global level and on the national level at all. So by large, I would say the most beneficial of the conservation of the World Heritage Site would be us as a human. We can conserve that, and then we conserve biodiversity, and ultimately we can survive on our life on the long term. I wouldn't go further any that, because I know a lot of people we have opportunity, and hopefully we have more cooperation in the future for
Dr. Naber, are you still with us?
Yeah. Yes, I am. So I'm just want to close my remark. That's everything's. If any questions or any kind of ideas that will be helpful for us, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are behind the schedule. We started a little bit late. I can't see any questions and answers in the chat box. This is why I would like first to say happy birthday to Pamela. This is her birthday today, so all the best wishes for her. And I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank Ms. Alison Hogg, Dr. Miguel Vidal, Dr. Sofia, Dr. Murad Lefliqa, Mr. Nizar Adarbe, Dr. Naber Ghazal Aswad. I'd like to thank Pamela and Susan for this very important information, all of you. I would like to thank Leo to play the role of rapporteur today, and thank all my colleagues, Lucia, Mike, Juliana from behind the screen for all the hard work that they are doing. And I would like to conclude with a part of the Hangzhou Declaration that placed cultural heritage at the heart of the Sustainable Development Policy that was published in 2013. We reaffirm that culture should be considered to be a fundamental enabler of sustainability, being a source of meaning and energy, a wellspring of creativity and innovation, and a resource to address challenges and find appropriate solutions. The extraordinary power of culture to foster and enable truly sustainable development is especially evident when a people-centered and place-based approach is integrated into development programs and peace-building initiatives. Before we close this session, I would like to ask if any of our panelists had any final comments or remark on the session. Kindly, if anybody had anything to add to what he said, or as a comment on what he saw, kindly do. I don't see any raised hand. Yes, Pamela.
I just want to thank you first for remembering my birthday. And I would also like to thank everybody for joining this session. I think going from the regional to the global has been an eye-opener, because we can see that there are so many common challenges, but local strength. And maybe this is the way we can address those challenges with our local resources. So thank you again for this opportunity, and it has been wonderful to hear your presentations. And thank you, Luna, for the moderation as well.
Thank you, Pamela. And I would like to thank a special thank to Dr. Nabil Ghazal Aswad to responding to be with us today, because he had a very, very short notice, just 7 hours. We just contacted him midnight yesterday, and he was able, and we are thankful to him to join us. And I would like to thank you again, all of us, and thanks to the people who attend this session. And we have a question to Sophia. How can studies like the OWH sustainability case studies work help ICOMOS's work advising the World Heritage Committee? Alison, would you like to answer this question kindly?
I think the question is to Sophia. Sorry for
stepping in. Sorry, Dr. Sophia.
Okay, ICOMOS has a very strict procedure for this evaluation, and very systematic, and also collective. So when a dossier, a nomination dossier arrives from UNESCO to ICOMOS, there is an invitation from the ICOMOS unit for World Heritage for mission or desk reviews. And this invitation is addressed to the experts of ICOMOS about the topic of this nomination dossier. Then, when all this work arrives to ICOMOS Secretariat, there is another step with the participation of ICOMOS advisors of this procedure, and a systematic discussion within the panel of ICOMOS for this purpose. There are some other steps, but the procedure is long. The duration is almost 1 year for all these processes, and we think that the evaluation from ICOMOS on these proposals of nomination is very, very systematic, very deep, and responsible. After all this procedure, the nomination dossier is arriving in the World Heritage Committee. This week is the session of 2021 and 2022 because of the pandemic. So this level is another one, is a political level of the discussion, and that's it. The World Heritage Committee decides about the inscription or not inscription of one site in the World Heritage List. This is a very short description of the procedure.
Thank you, Dr. Sophia. We had another question to Alison. How are the several land management plans coordinated during implementation? Are there overlaps in roles and jurisdiction that are resolved? Thank you, Alison. Would you like to answer online, please?
Yes, thank you, Marja. I did see that question from Miki, and I answered it on the portal, but for the benefit of everyone, so that we have these local plans. There are 6 of them that are community-led, and they prescribe protective designations. There are zoning schemes and legal prescriptions in those, and 2 provincial park management plans, and they're all brought together in the site management plan, which isn't prescriptive, but it does set out the goals. There are 4 broad management goals and about 18 actions that the partnership has agreed to pursue. And that document really explains how all the plans come together. There are different levels of working groups, but if you wanted to have a look at it, it's on our website at pimaki.ca. That answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any additional thing? I would like to remind all the attendees that we have tomorrow another session that will talk about and give the conclusion and recommendation for the remaining 3 other regions, and we will have a plenary session on the 24th of July also. Hope you manage to participate with us. These 2 sessions, today and tomorrow, will be presenting all the recommendations for the 6 regions, and the 24th will be the conclusion of all the regions with themselves. Also, I would like to invite you. We have also an activity after tomorrow, Saturday. It's about cultural heritage as a language of inclusion, and personally I'm one of the speakers after tomorrow. It will be at 12 UTC, and kindly we have a very rich month of seminars, webinars and debates. So hope you can all join us and enrich the discussion with your comments and questions. Thank you, everybody, and all the best. And also, again, reminding me that we need to talk about owhvoices.org that has been is going to we need to take a look at it and help it. It is a very important initiative that we back up. Thank you all and have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you.
See you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luna. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sophia. Thank you, Dr. Murad. Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, Pamela, Leo. And all the best for tomorrow, Leo. You have also tomorrow, don't you? Are we out of